Baylor University. Retiring military veterans transition issues adapting to the civilian lifestyle, a multiple case study by Richard Putnam, doctoral candidate, with faculty advisor Dr. Leanne Howell, PhD. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm delighted to share with you the findings of my research on the challenges faced by veterans during their transition to civilian life. Let's begin with a brief overview of the problem and the context in which this study was conducted. The problem statement is the transition from the military service to civilian life presents significant challenges for veterans. Now let's move to the next slide to discuss the details about the literature review. As many of you are aware, the transition from the military service to civilian life has presented significant challenges for veterans. Numerous studies, such as those by Voigt, Keeling, and Marin, have highlighted issues like underemployment, mental health struggles, and homelessness among veterans. Starting from left to right, the first block shows coping with the situation, under which is disorienting dilemma, which is leaving their job and losing their identity as patriots. The duration of the transition, research shows it takes approximately 2 years. Identity, difficult letting go of their military affiliation and their experience carrying little value outside of the military. Perception of control, many veterans are subject to variables that are beyond their control. The second block, mitigating self factors, under which is self-handicapping, which is a conditioning of fearing separation from the military. Many veterans are also subject to that 20-year vesting cliff, which forces the veterans into indenture of the military. So they must do 20 years before they can qualify for their benefits. Then there's margin in life, which is the energy or mental capacity to ensure that they are ready for change. Difficulties comprehending change, being part of a highly directed organization creates a loss of self-directed learning, transformative learning, and overall motivation. Then there's fatigue. Maintaining a constant state of readiness produces burnout. Plus, studies have shown that there is disruptive circadian rhythm. This is where the sleep of the service member gets disrupted because they're having to stand watch or respond to a wartime environment. Health, there's mental and physical. PTSD and physical problems may limit the work options that are available to the veterans. The third block, access to support, the family need. Many veterans depend on their families for emotional and financial support. However, those families are also affected by the transition. Friendships are also in the military, but those friendships are fluid, revolving, and understood to be temporary because service members are constantly moving in, and this may also create a limited employment network for that veteran that is separating from the military. Institutional support, VA accessibility issues, retiring also requires reestablishing church, schools, and healthcare because they no longer have access to military churches, Department of Defense schools, and military hospitals. Now, the fourth block, adapt and implement a strategy. Expectation management. Many veterans are unaware that there could be a sharp contrast in financial cost, including lost benefits, decreased allowances, or taxable income changes once they leave the service. The mental energy, many underestimate navigating the intricacies of transitioning out of the military while maintaining operational commitments. Coping strategies, service members do not cope well with other sources of stress that are present. 51% of post 9/11 veterans report that they had difficulty adjusting to civilian life, and that 49% suffered from post-traumatic stress. Education and training, 30% of veterans fall victim to money mismanagement. Many disjointed resources are available to assist veterans as they transition out of the military. However, to modify their situation, The service member must overcome demanding work environments and schedules to capitalize on educational and professional development opportunities that are available to them. Let's move to the next slide to discuss the purpose statement. The purpose of my research was to dive deeper into the experience of veterans during this transition and to identify key factors influencing successful transition into civilian life. This study aimed to bridge gaps existing research, focusing on factors like self-directed learning, coping strategies, and support systems. Let's proceed to the next slide to explore the methodology. In this research, I employed a qualitative multiple case study approach. I conducted in-depth interviews, organized a focus group with veterans, and reviewed the Transition Assistance Program curriculum. These methods allowed me to gain a comprehensive understanding of veterans' challenges and experiences. So let's move to the next slide to discuss the research questions. To guide my research, I formulated two essential questions. One, how do United States military veterans describe the roles of situation, self, support, and strategic resources in their efforts to transition from military to civilian life? Number two, what perceived barriers exist that prevent military veterans from successfully transitioning from military to civilian life? These questions were instrumental in shaping the direction of my study. Let's move to the next slide to discuss the theoretical framework. This study was grounded in transition theory, with a specific focus on Schlossberg's transition theory. This framework helped me understand how veterans adapt to and navigate challenges of transitioning to civilian life. The application of the theoretical framework to the research design allowed me to maintain congruency throughout the research. Here's a visual representation of the framework. This model allowed me to explore the critical role of situation, self, support, and strategic resources in veteran transition experiences. So let's proceed to the next slide to discuss the findings from the framework analysis. Using the same graphic used to illustrate the overview of the literature review, I have highlighted in red those findings from the framework analysis. While not explicitly stated, a prominent emerging pattern was the occurrence of multiple barriers requiring mitigation or having severe consequences concurrently. These barriers often compounded and created a snowball effect, resulting in a more significant negative impact on a successful transition. Let's proceed to the next slide to discuss the barriers to transition. Barriers to transition, highlighted in red, illustrates the barriers that participants encounter during their transition journey. These include the importance of preparedness, coping strategies, the perception of the military experience, family support, health concerns, and the effectiveness of the Transition Assistance Program. Combining these themes with the barriers provided a more comprehensive understanding of the complex nature of veterans' challenges and opportunities as they transition into civilian life. In the next slide, I will discuss the findings related to the literature. Findings related to the literature. My research uncovered three key findings: a lack of financial preparedness among veterans, leading to immediate financial stress. Number two, emotional identity challenges as veterans transition from a structured military environment. And number three, the crucial role of support systems as self-directed learning and facilitating successful transitions. Now look at the visual of how these findings connect with the existing literature on veteran transition challenges. These findings highlighted the importance of tailored support services and targeted interventions for veterans. Proceed to the next slide to discuss the recommendations and implications. Recommendations and implications. Looking at the slide, you will see the identified stakeholders. Based on my findings, I have several recommendations and implications for stakeholders. Developing specialized financial preparedness programs, enhancing career transition programs, prioritizing mental health services, encouraging strong support networks, promoting self-directed learning, and these efforts aim to enhance veterans' overall well-being and facilitate their successful transition into civilian life. So let's move to the next slide so that I may provide an overview of my distribution plan. To ensure my research findings reach the right audiences and shape professional practices, I have a comprehensive distribution plan. For retired military veterans, I plan to collaborate with veteran support organizations, host webinars and workshops, and engage in the social media campaigns. TAP providers will also benefit from professional presentations, collaborative workshops, and feedback mechanisms. Military institutions will receive research presentations and guidance on program evaluation mechanisms. The civilian community will be reached through community workshops, collaborations, and local businesses, awareness campaigns, and academic collaborations. Policymakers and advocacy groups will have access to policy briefings, research collaborations, and advocacy campaigns. Let's conclude with the final slide. Lastly, I'd like to share some valuable references that have contributed significantly to my research. These references have informed my understanding of the challenges veterans face during their transition. Here are the selected references. Thank you for your attention today. My research aims to support veterans during their transition, promoting a smoother and more fulfilling process for those who have served our country. I look forward to further questions and discussion. Thank you.